Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of Sean's Movie Crusades. My name is Sean Waskrug and I'm here to review all the latest movies in theaters as well as anything you guys recommend, whether they be recent films or old school movies. Today's episode is kind of our year-end episode as we are going over the top movies of 2018. Now we're going to be doing this in a little bit differently, so instead of me just giving you top 5 or top 10 movies of the year, because there have been so many great films this year overall. It's been actually a real great year in terms of movies. We're going to do kind of a split up. I've got a top 10 honorable mentions, so think of it as like top 11 through 20, and then we got an actual top 10. I'm going to split that up into two separate videos, and kind of break it up that way, so that way the video is not as long. I mean, it still probably will be long, but it won't be as long as it normally is. Before we get started on the video, go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button here on the channel. And also head on over to Sean's Movie Crusades on Facebook and follow there as well, so that way you guys are kept up to date with all the latest information that pops up on the channel. So as we're going into the top movies of 2018, like I said previously, this has been a great year in movies. To the reasoning that I actually did have to make two separate videos for this, because I tried to do a top 10. And while, yes, I do have a top 10 list, there was just so many great films that were just outside of the top 10 that I felt needed and deserved to at least be recognized. And that's kind of the whole reason why I'm doing this honorable mentions video, so like 11 through 20. Yeah, because there's just been way too many good films this year, and I think for people who don't go out and see a lot of movies, I felt like this needed to kind of be extended a little bit further. So that's kind of how we're going to start. We're going to start with the number 20. And some of these movies, if you've watched previous videos of me, either A, I have reviews of these films already up on the channel, or B, they were also in the latest videos that have popped up this past week, such as like most surprising films of the year, or some of the other films that have popped up also. So some of these I might go through a little bit quicker than most, just because I have talked about them on previous videos, so just not to beat a dead horse with it, to just kind of just get through them a little bit quicker to try to save some time. So, why I say that is one of the number 20 video is a movie that has not only been reviewed on the channel, but it is also a movie that has been popped up on a video previously. Before I go into the actual videos, minor spoiler alert. There will be certain things I will bring up. I'm going to try my best not to go super spoiler, but there will be certain times where I will bring up stuff in the movie. So this is a spoiler alert notice for everybody. So let's go ahead and go into the number 20 movie of the year, and that is Overlord. Just like I have said in previous videos, Overlord was a complete surprise to me. The trailers looked just like a generic Nazi zombie movie that they were actually making for theaters instead of just straight to Blu-ray or DVD or streaming like they do with pretty much all Nazi zombie movies. This film I thought was incredibly well done. Great young cast of relatively no-name actors. Like I said in previous videos, the only real well-known name actors in the movie would probably be Wyatt Russell, who's Kurt Russell's son, Jovan Adipo, who was in the movie Fences with Denzel Washington last year, and also Jacob Anderson, who plays Dawson. If anyone who watches Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., he plays Fitz on that. Other than that, and also Plo Asbeek. I'm sorry I butchered the name. He plays the main Nazi guy, and he's on Game of Thrones. Other than that, it's a relatively either new or not real big actors in the film, and I think they all play their roles perfectly. You have the New Yorker, who's kind of the smart ass and annoying character played by John Magaro. And then you have and to me the breakout role of the movie, which was played by Mathilde Olivier. She played Chloe. She's a French actress. I hope to see more films from her coming in the future. Like I said, the film is fantastic. It's labeled as a horror film, but for 3/4 of the film, it is just a great World War II movie with the last quarter of the film going full-on horror. And once the horror does kick in, it's done incredibly well done. The first 10 minutes of the film is batshit crazy in terms of intensity of war. Up there near the ranks of Saving Private Ryan. It doesn't obviously hit that peak because Saving Private Ryan is a masterpiece in terms of opening film. But its plane scene is probably the most insane I've seen in terms of a war film in terms of plane. Usually when we see intense war scenes, it's usually on the ground or in a battleship or something like that. This one was actually legitimately in an actual plane. I haven't really seen many movies that do it where basically these guys are just straight up helpless because they're in a plane and they can't really fight back and they're being attacked, and it's just a really, really intense scene. And then from there, we start building the characters up and all the way through until we get to the crazy finale with all the horror aspects of it. But Overlord, fantastic film. Definitely needs to be recognized as one of the better films of the year. And definitely something that everyone should go out of their way to try to see. It's not in theaters anymore, but it should be coming up in streaming and digital and Blu-ray and all that here really soon. Number 19th ranked movie of the year. And by the way, not that I need to mention this, but this is strictly my opinion. I mean, there are some films that are going to be on these lists that probably wouldn't be ranked in anyone else's top films of the year. But they're my personal favorites of the year. Now, some of them are just straight up guilty pleasures. Other ones are because of how incredibly well done they are. And some of them are even going to be Oscar favorites here of the year. And some clearly won't be. But like I said in previous films, everyone's opinions are valid. Some people, I'm sure, loved the movies that I hated for worst movies of the year and most disappointing movies of the year. So bear that in mind when I go through this list. You guys might not enjoy these movies, or you guys might not think these movies should be considered top films of the year, but these are the ones that, over the near 100 movies that I've watched this year, these are the ones that I consider to be the standout class. So, should have probably said that in the beginning before I went into Overlord, but figured we'll just go into it now. Number 19. Now, this one is a very popular film for many people of the year. But as much as I loved it, it almost actually ended up in my most disappointed because while I enjoyed the film immensely, it also annoyed me to a point, but it definitely still deserved to be in the top 20, and that is Bohemian Rhapsody. I remember when the first trailer of this movie came out, I could not have been more excited. I honestly was expecting this to potentially be my number 1 or number 2 movie of the year. It ended up finishing at number 19 for me. I'm a huge Queen fan. Bohemian Rhapsody, the song, is probably one of my favorite songs of all time. I remember the first time I actually ever heard it was actually during Wayne's World. The movie Wayne's World, with the intro to the film when they're all headbanging in the car. That was the first time I ever heard the song, and from then on, I was just in love with it. And then, of course, We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions. I mean, of course, naturally, everyone's heard those songs, as well as anything else from Queen. So when this movie came out, I was super excited for it. Plus, Rami Malek puts on a phenomenal performance as Freddie Mercury. The rest of the cast is solid too. Lucy Boynton, she plays Mary. She's not getting the recognition she deserves. I think she should have been nominated for supporting actress, because I think every scene that she's in with Rami Malek's Freddie Mercury character is some of the highlights of the film, especially the one scene of the movie where they basically hash it out and Freddie Mercury officially kind of comes out to her. That is a highlight scene in terms of just straight up acting ability between these two, and I wish she would have gotten more recognition for her role. Easily the best scene of the year has to be the whole Live Aid concert at the end of the film. That whole scene gave me goosebumps. It made me emotional. It was just utterly fantastic. And like I said, if I had to rank top scenes of the year, which don't worry, I'm not going to make something like that because I can't show videos. At least I'm not sure how to do the videos of these yet. If I did, I probably would have done that. But yeah, the Live Aid scene, easily hands down one of my favorite scenes, if not the best scene of the year for me. Reason why it drops all the way down to 19 when I expected it to be number 1 or number 2 is that I was not very happy with how they took liberties with the true story of Queen, how they told certain things out of order to make the story better, aka the band breaking up, which they never did, or them announcing that Freddie Mercury had AIDS right before they went on Live Aid to kind of rally the band, which he didn't find out he had AIDS until 3 years after Live Aid. Like certain things like that really irked me because, I mean, most people don't know the real story of Queen, so they're going to use this movie kind of as their basis of knowing the true story of Queen. And while it does have good elements of truth, there's a lot that's not true. Just like Remy in the beginning of the movie when Mercury just walks up to Brian and Roger after one of their concerts and joins the band that way. He lived with them in an apartment before this scene even happened in the film, so he knew them way before this. Like situations like that. So I mean that's why it kind of dropped low. That, and it felt very behind the music VH1 in a sense. There was just certain things that they did the same old band movie where the lead singer or the best bandmate gets a solo career, and then it hurts the band, and then you realize he needs the band, so the bands get back together and they throw one big show, which is funny because in real life, I believe Roger Taylor, he actually got his first solo album first, even before Freddie Mercury, but that's not acknowledged in the movie. I still loved the movie throughout. It just annoys me at certain points because that film takes huge liberties with the actual real story of Queen, and because of that, that's why it drops down to 19 instead of being one of the best films of the year. I realize that a lot of people love that movie. I still love it. That's why it's on this list. It just could have been so much more than what it was, but it still deserved to be on the list. We go to number 18, and this one, frankly, does not get enough attention. This is a sequel. The first film, easily one of the best movies of the year when it came out. Then they came out with the sequel. It came out in the beginning of the year. I think it was actually the first legitimate film that came out of 2018. And it just kind of came and went. And even though the reviews were astoundingly positive for this film, it got no traction for popularity or anything like that. But the movie itself is fantastic, and that is Paddington 2. The first Paddington film, I remember going into that just not excited for it, not expecting much out of it, and I fell in love with this bear and just the lovely, heartfelt story that it told. And so when we had the sequel, where they threw in Hugh Grant as the villain, which was brilliant, by the way, you had an even better story and even stronger story than the first film. The original cast from the first film was back. You had Michael Gambon, who most people know as Dumbledore from the Harry Potter franchise. You had Sally Hawkins, who recently was up for Best Actress nominations for The Shape of Water. You got Ben Whishaw. He voices Paddington. Most people might know him from Mary Poppins Returns. Brandon Gleeson, he plays one of the cellmates of Paddington in the film. You also got Peter Capaldi, Doctor Who. He plays one of the guys in the movie that just does not like Paddington. But it's a great story. Basically, the main story in itself is Paddington is trying to buy a special pop-up book for his aunt, and in the process, he catches someone trying to steal the book. So I guess the book also has a lot of secrets in it that helps you find a treasure. And in the process, he gets caught in the middle of everything and is sent to prison for trying to steal the book, even though Paddington was actually stopping the thief. And so he actually ends up being in prison with Brandon Gleeson and a bunch of other estranged casts. And like I said, you find a bear in a tough prison, and he just turns the tables on everybody and turns it into a real lovely prison. The whole movie is just a joy to watch. It's fun to watch. It's just, you can't help but smile watching this movie. It's very lighthearted, and it definitely deserves to be, if not even higher on this list, it deserves to be recognized by a lot of people and watched a lot more, because this is a criminally underrated franchise, and Paddington 2 is easily one of the best movies of the year, and it was everything that Christopher Robin should have been. Going on to the next one here is something that's also just popped up recently. It probably should have been on my most surprising, but I was actually really positive on the trailer, so that's why I didn't end up there. And that is the latest Transformers movie, Bumblebee. I know, I'm surprised myself, because all Transformers movies since the original cartoons or basically the Transformers movies with Michael Bay directing, have just been trash. The first one was okay, but the other ones have been trash. And so when Bumblebee came out, I was a little hesitant, but because this was the first Transformers movie that was not directed by Michael Bay, and you also had Haley Steinfeld in the cast as well as John Cena, I actually gave this one some more confidence, and I was actually glad I did, because this was a great film. It does hit a lot of the same beats as you see with a lot of other films, such as like E.T., Iron Giant. It's a very boy and his dog kind of story, except this is a girl in her car. Haley Steinfeld puts on a fantastic performance as Charlie. The Bumblebee character is given a whole new light of clarity as a character. You also have great standout cast as you have Jorge Lenenborg Jr. who plays Mimo. John Cena's pretty solid in his role. I mean, he's basically just doing your basic like CIA, FBI kind of military guy. But I mean, he's fine in the role he does. The action is great. You can actually see the action this time, unlike in other Transformers movies. And it's got a lot of heart in the story, and it's rather enjoyable to watch. And it was a surprising film that really kind of hit me right where I needed to for a Transformers movie. And if they do decide to reboot the franchise, which I know they're going to do, I hope they use this as the starting point for the franchise, instead of pretending like this doesn't happen, just like the crappier version of Transformers films. So Bumblebee definitely deserves to be recognized as the number 17th movie of the year. Going to number 16, we've got, and I just mentioned this in a previous video recently, Love, Simon. Like I said, this movie was fantastically well done. It's a great coming of age story about a boy or teenager, Simon, played by Nick Robinson. He's got a great family. He's got great friends. He's pretty solid in terms of school, in terms of popularity. But he's got this lingering thing that he is gay, and he just does not know how to come out because he's afraid of how everyone will treat him afterwards. So he ends up developing a pen pal with another gay kid at school. He goes by codename Blue. And it's basically a whole story about him kind of coming to terms with his homosexuality and his way of trying to come out to his friends and family, while also falling for Blue and trying to figure out who the Blue character actually is. It's incredibly well done. It's a solid young cast, as well as standout performances, supporting performances from Jennifer Garner and Josh Duhamel, who play Simon's parents. Like I said, the young cast is great as well. It's very heartfelt. It's funny in a lot of great moments, and it shows a lot of heart throughout the film. May even get a tear or two out of you as you're watching it. But definitely the best coming-of-age teen movie since Edge of 17 with Haley Steinfeld that came out last year, or was it 2 years ago? Can't quite remember. But yeah, Love, Simon was a fantastic movie. It crept up on me. I heard a lot of solid things about it, but not enough to the point where I went out to go see it. So I caught it once it got released on digital and was greatly surprised. And it's definitely something that I would recommend to many people. So definitely, if you haven't seen it, or if you haven't heard anything about it, if you want to watch a great coming-of-age tale, Love, Simon is definitely one you should look out for. Coming up next also was on my most surprising list, and that was the movie that really Venom should have taken after, and that is Upgrade. Upgrade is a great kind of indie film. Came out around, I think it was August. Was it August? June. Sorry, it came out in June. And it's basically about Gray Trance, played by Logan Marshall Green. And in a process of being mugged, he loses his wife, and he loses all feeling below his neck as he's shot in the spine. This billionaire tech guy who Gray has worked for from time to time because he works on cars, basically gives him a transplant in terms of embedding a chip into his spine that gives him the ability to walk again. What Jeff Hanley, the billionaire tech guy, and Gray don't know is that the chip, which goes by the name of STEM, actually has its own AI and starts talking to Gray, and then in the process starts helping Gray find out who the muggers were that killed his wife and paralyzed him, and it basically becomes a kind of a story of revenge and kind of a buddy film in a dark way between STEM and Gray. The action that they shoot in this is incredibly well done, and like I said in previous videos, Logan Marshall Green does a fantastic job of doing one thing with his body but selling it with his face differently. There's one particular scene, there's multiple scenes like this in the film, but the very first scene where Stum really comes out and helps Gray attack the first mugger, you can really see how awesome Logan Marshall Green does, as his face is straight up horrified at what his body is doing, as Stem has fully taken over to help him defend himself while also attack the mugger. It's a highlight film, and it doesn't end the way you think it's going to end. So it's got a great kind of twist ending towards all the way through to the end. It's a very awesome film. It's my number 2 science fiction film of the year. The number 1 will be on this list a little bit later. But yeah, Upgrade is a fantastic film, and it's everything that I wish Venom would have been. Going on to the next one, we've got Damien Chazelle's First Man. This came out back in October, and it's basically about the story of Neil Armstrong and basically the 8 years that he went through the Apollo, or the NASA program, eventually leading up to his Apollo 11 landing on the moon. The story itself, it's good in most parts. It does drag a little bit in certain areas. The highlight of this film is definitely Claire Foy's performance of Janet Armstrong, as she basically is playing a wife who's kind of in the middle of having to deal with dealing with her children and dealing with Neil Armstrong, because Neil Armstrong, he's going through a lot. They lose their daughter at a very young age to cancer, and you can tell that Neil has not fully ever really recovered from that. But he basically is also working for NASA, and they're trying to figure out how to get on the moon and try to beat the Russians to it. And there's a lot of loss and death in this film. And Ryan Gosling, not necessarily my favorite performance of his in this film, but he's got layers of greatness in there. But it comes and goes in this film. I think a lot of people were expecting this to be a Best Picture nomination. I don't think it quite hits that level, as like I said, there are certain areas where the movie drags. There are certain characters that are not really given enough fleshed out roles and are kind of just forgotten because it is the story of Neil Armstrong. And I also felt that there are certain situations they just could have done differently. But what made this movie so great, and why it's on the list in the first place, is the ability that Damien Chazelle shoots this film. The very first scene with Neil in the aircraft is intense, and it's awesome looking. Every time he gets in any kind of spacecraft, the sound design of the movie is fantastic. I mean, it literally makes you feel almost claustrophobic. The stuff that these astronauts had to go through, and then of course the huge moon landing at the end is brilliantly done, especially when they first exit out of the shuttle and they kill the music right then and there because space has no sound. And so to just kind of chew on this scenery of this amazing scene in history and not having a score playing behind it, I thought was a very smart move. All the performances in the film are very well done. Kyle Chandler does a solid solid character role in the movie as Deke Slayton. He's one of the NASA guys. Jason Clarke, I thought, did a fantastic job in the movie, as well as Ed White. Corey, the one negative I would feel is that Corey Stoll's performance as Buzz Aldrin, they really make Buzz Aldrin come off as a dick in this movie, which I don't know if that was the right choice to do in this film, but literally every time he's on screen, they make him act like some buffoon asshole. But, I mean, Corey Stoll does a great job at it. It's just, I don't feel like that was something they should have done to the Buzz Aldrin character. Olivia Hamilton does a solid job as Pat White. There's a lot of great cast in this film, and that's like I said, one of the main problems. That you have so many great actors in this movie, but they're just not given enough time to really do anything. They might get a scene here or there where they really kind of break out of their shells, but other than that, they're just not fleshed out enough for you to really full on care about them for the most part. It's mainly Neil Armstrong and Janet Armstrong's story, and even then, I felt like Claire Foy could have given a little bit more in the movie to do, but she's great in what she does get. But First Man, still something I recommend seeing, as just the way the space scenes are shot are fantastic, And sound design of the film as well is intense, and like I said, it gives you that claustrophobic feeling. I know a lot of people don't like to feel that way, but it definitely puts you in the mindset of what these astronauts had to go through all these missions to finally reach their goal of landing on the moon. So yeah, going to the next movie. This movie also was on my most surprising. It was actually my number 1 most surprising film of the year, and it is my number 12 movie of the year, and that is Searching. I still can't say enough great things about this movie. I feel like it does the gimmick of completely being shot through like a webcam or cell phone camera or security camera. I feel like it does that fantastically. John Cho puts on an amazing performance as David Kim. The level of stress and stuff that he goes through in the film is super intense, and the way you see his physical appearance change as the movie flows from the beginning to the end is incredible. Deborah Messing puts on a great supporting performance as Detective Vic. Basically, the entire story, if people who don't already know, because they haven't watched any of the other videos, is basically David Kim's daughter, Margot, played by Michelle La. She goes missing, and so he calls the cops, to put in a file for a missing persons report, and the detective Vic, played by Deborah Messing, basically tells David to log on to Margot's computer and see if he can find anything about her that would help them find her whereabouts. And basically, Dave goes into this whole world of where he thought he knew his daughter, but really didn't know her much at all. And it's a great, not satire, but it's a great story that tells just how true social media really is, how you can be perceived as one thing, but be living a completely different life in general. There's many twists and turns through the film. It's like I said, it's great overall. Great cast performances by John Cho and Deborah Messing, and it's easily a highlighted film. I wanted to put it in my top 10 so badly, but it just fell out of the top 10. But Searching easily is one of the better films of the year, and I could not say more great things about it, and I hope everyone finds time to try and catch this film. The next one is a guilty pleasure film of mine. It's definitely not going to be on anyone's top 10, maybe even top 20. It is my number 12 film of the year. Sorry, Searching was number 13. But I loved this movie. I've watched this movie probably the most out of any movie that I've seen this year, and that is Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One. I just so much loved this movie. I thought the cast was great. I thought the story was fantastic. I loved all the Easter eggs that the movie provided. Basically, what the story is about is it's in the future, and basically it's kind of a dystopian future where everyone's lives are basically focused around logging in and playing this game, or playing in this this universe, this gaming universe called the Oasis. Where people can kind of just be anybody. If you have a shitty life outside the Oasis, you can just go home after work or school or whatever, log on, and you can be whoever you want to be. If you want to be a rock star, a hero, a villain, anything like that, that's what you can do in the Oasis. And it's incredibly well done, I felt. I love the cast. Ty Sheridan does a great job as Wade. Olivia Cook, who I loved in Bates Motel, she does a great job as Samantha. Ben Mendelsohn, you guys have heard on this channel before how much I love Ben Mendelsohn as a villain, and he's a great villain in here as Sorrento. The rest of the cast is also great. You got Lena Wathi, she plays Helen. T.J. Miller does great as I Rock. He's a villain character, or villain video game character in the movie. Simon Pegg's got a great supporting role, as well as Mark Rylance. You also have Philip Zhao and Win Morisaki. They do great. You also got Hannah John Kamen. She plays Finale. Many people might know her as Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Can't say enough great things about the cast. I thought they all flowed relatively fine. But the gaming world of the Oasis is so amazing. I would love for them to do more films of this. I know it's a book, so the chances of sequels aren't really high. But whether it was just them hanging out in the Oasis, or them actually doing the, basically the general story, is basically, Wade and Samantha and his pals, they're all trying to find these 3 keys, because Mark Rylance's character, Halliday, he owns the Oasis. And basically, he passed away, and he said if anyone could find the 3 keys inside the Oasis, that they would own the company and basically be able to run the Oasis themselves. So it becomes a story between Wade and his friends going against Sorrento and kind of the corporate company, trying to find these 3 keys. Like I said, I loved everything that they did inside the gaming world. The Shining scene was a super huge highlight, as well as the huge epic battle at the end, where literally you had to pause every clip so you could just catch the hundreds and hundreds of Easter egg cameos that this movie had. I had a blast watching this movie, and like I said, it's the one movie that I probably have watched the most times this year, mainly because it came out in March, so I've had the ability to watch it over and over and over again, because I have it on Blu-ray and 4K HD, but it's definitely something that I quite enjoyed, and I wanted to put it in my top 10, but I knew that there were just other movies that were probably just better overall, but I had to get it at least on the channel to be talked about. So Ready Player One is my number 12 movie of the year, and I strongly encourage everyone to watch it and just have a blast watching it, especially if you're a gamer. Going to the number 11 film of the year, and the last one on the honorable mentions list, and that goes to Creed 2. I personally love the first Creed film. I thought they told a fantastic story. Ryan Coogler did a great job directing the first Creed film. Did a fantastic job with Michael B. Jordan and Rocky, Sylvester Stallone's character. So when they came out with the second film and they were bringing in Drago's son, I could not have been more excited. And this movie did not disappoint. I think Michael B. Jordan did a great job as Adonis Johnson Creed in this. And it's kind of a mixture. I mean, if you wanted to say that Creed was a lot like Rocky 1, this one was more or less Rocky 3 and Rocky 4 kind of mixed together. I loved the side story of the Dragos and how, yes, Ivan Drago was such a villain in Rocky 4, obviously because he kills Apollo Creed in their boxing match. You could see the toll his life had taken and changed after he lost to Rocky at the end of Rocky 4. And even with his son, Victor Drago, basically they were shunned from the Russia. They had to live in Croatia because he basically did wrong by losing for the Russians. And their story is like I said, awesome. I just wish there was more to their story because their story was so appealing that I just wanted more from the Dragos in this film. And at the end of the film, when they go into the final battle between Victor and Adonis, like, I almost didn't want Victor to lose, and I'm not going to say why. You have to actually see the movie to find out. But I felt bad for the Dragos. I never thought I'd ever feel bad for the Dragos, but this movie made me feel bad for the Dragos to the point where I almost didn't want them to lose. Like I said, Michael B. Jordan does a great job as Adonis. He's like I said, he's doing kind of the Rocky 3 kind of character. So anyone who knows the Rocky movies will understand exactly what I'm saying by that. Stallone does great in this as well. He's kind of pulls back a little bit compared to what he did in the first Creed film. Tessa Thompson returns. She does a great job. She's actually given, I believe, more to do in this one than she did in the first film. Everyone does a fantastic job. I don't think there was really a weak performance out of the bunch. And the boxing scenes, while shot differently from the first film, I still enjoyed the hell out of them. And Creed 2 was easily one of my favorite movies of the year. And with that ends the most honorable mentions for top movies of 2018. And I hope you guys like this list. Maybe you guys had some of these movies in your top films of the year. Maybe none of these were in your top films of the year. But these were my 11 through 20 films of the year. I loved all these movies, and they're definitely movies I will continue to watch over the years. And I strongly encourage you guys to catch these movies whenever you guys have time if you have never seen them. And if you have seen them and you like them or dislike them, feel free to leave comments on the video or over on the Facebook page. Basically, let's talk about them. Did you like these movies? What did you like about the movies? If you didn't like them, or if you think other films should have been on this list, even though there are still 10 more movies to go, let's talk about it. Leave some comments. Don't forget to hit that like button. And if you guys feel like this video is worth sharing, hit that share button as well and spread the word. Let's make Sean's Movie Crusades a bigger thing than what it is right now. And we're gonna go right into the next video. So if you guys are still watching, go ahead on over to the next one as I go through the top 10 movies of 2018. And if not, until I see you guys again, Movie Crusaders, good morning, good afternoon, and good night.